Well, good afternoon, and Sodawada, one and all. By Abdi and others, one of us from the Somali. I hope I'm considered the same way, but we're here today, and I want to welcome this small group. And I'm sorry it's a small group because the pandemic, the COVID-19, has restricted our ability to celebrate occasions like this in person. And we're celebrating today a couple of days in advance, but it's always better to be early. Somalia Independence Day, Republic of Somalia Day, which is actually on July 1st, the same day as Canada Day. So we share many things in common with our Somali Canadian brothers and sisters, and one of them is the day that we celebrate our two great countries. And I want to just say that it's been my own experience to have had developed a great friendship, and I'm sure the same is true of Yvan, with the Somali community in the city of Toronto. And if I had to comment on the community, the first thing that I would comment on is the role of family. And in particular, I want to just pay tribute to the mums, because certainly when it comes to discussing public policy issues and looking at some of the challenges that are faced by kids and by the city as a whole, it is those groups of mums that have been profoundly impactful on me, and they're so deeply committed to the things that they care so deeply about, starting with their kids. And to me, that is a mark, as is the case with many of the families of people who have come here over generations to join us in Canada and chosen Canada, is something they've brought that I think is of huge benefit to us, to remind us of the importance of family. I also want to just acknowledge they're people of faith, and I think that too has been something that has been a contributor to their ability to become successful members of the Toronto community. There are challenges this community faces, but that's often true of communities that had the courage to choose to come to Canada from faraway lands. But I've certainly got to know them, whether it's at soccer tournaments or at different kinds of community events, and they are people who are devoted Canadians, devoted Torontonians, and the people who I think it is very fitting that we should celebrate in terms of their annual day. I want to thank Abdi Mohammed from the Toronto Development Association of Youth for helping us to organize this. I think Minister Hassan was to be here, but found himself tied up, as is the case these days, with many different things that are going on. And I think that it is important for us to note that we celebrate these things together in Toronto. One of the reasons we've carried on with these more modest celebrations in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic is because I think the way we learn about each other, the way that we come to understand each other, the way we embrace each other, is that it's now the case that almost every day in the city there is some kind of a celebration, whether it's one that involves faith or one that involves a nationality, country of origin. And I think it's important for us to learn about those things, because only then will we be able to really build a city of true inclusion, when we understand each other and each other's lived experiences and all the different things that people brought as blessings to this country of ours. And so on that note, I will call, this is going to be out of protocol, but he's already at the microphone. Protocol would suggest that Mr. Baker, the federal MP, would speak first, but we don't, even though we have members of our protocol office here, we often go in a different way, and I will call Faisal Hassan, he's at the microphone, ask him to say a few words in honor of the Somali Independence Day, and then I'll vacate this microphone and ask Yvan Baker if he will speak next. So Faisal, thank you for being here. Welcome, and please, over to you.
Thank you, John, and thank you to the organizers, today, Abdi Mohammed Ade, and the entire Somali community. The Somali Heritage Week begins the 25th of June and ends July 1st, which is the Somalia Independence Day, and that came the union of two regions of Somalia, the British Somaliland and the Italian Somaliland, which formed Somalia. And there are a large Somali community here in the city of Toronto and in the province of Ontario. And the Somalis are contributing significantly in our community. They are police officers, they are military defending our freedom and making sure that they're contributing in many parts of fields of studies. And that we are very proud of that contributions. And today we are celebrating the independence which many Somalis have fought for their freedom under the colonial of the division of the continent of Africa, and now it is a time to celebrate and look forward for the future. Congratulations and happy Somalia Day.
Thank you very much, and I'm Yvan Baker. I'm the Member of Parliament for Etobicoke Centre, and it's an honor for me to be here today, and I'd like to thank the organizers, Abdi Mohammed in particular, for his work in putting this together, and the Mayor for hosting us here at City Hall, and it's a pleasure to be here next to my provincial colleague, and I have to say that as I was thinking about Somali Independence Day, I was reflecting a little bit on my own family's experience. My own family, my mother and my grandparents immigrated to Canada from a different part of the world. They immigrated from Ukraine. But my grandfather spent most of his young years risking his life, like many did alongside him, to fight for his own country's independence. And I remember when his country did become independent. It was back in 1991 when the Soviet Union fell. And I was with him. I was in my teens at the time, and we were watching the Berlin Wall fall, and we were watching the Soviet Union fall apart. And this might have been one of the proudest days of his life. And he said to me something that I didn't expect. He said, you know, Yvan, now that my country, now that Ukraine is independent, we must continue to fight to preserve that independence. And I said, well, Dido, I called him Dido. I said, Dido, how can you say that? I mean, we've been successful. We've won. This independence has been recognized. And of course, since then, over the last 5 years, his ancestral homeland has been invaded, and that independence has been compromised. When we were sitting with my grandfather then, I told him that he was wrong, and it turned out that I was wrong. I share that story with you today because it reminds me of some of the things that make this celebration, this flag raising, so important. First off, I think we need to recognize that Somalia's independence is a great accomplishment and was meant in part to lay the foundation for a more prosperous future for the Somali people. And that's worthy of celebration. I think it's also important to remember all the people who sacrificed and worked so hard and gave their lives in many cases to ensure that this day would actually happen. And lastly, I think it's important that we redouble our efforts, we recommit ourselves to continue the work to building an even stronger Somalia, the Somalia that generations of Somalis have envisioned, that the Somali Canadian community envisions for Somalia. And so today I'm very proud to be here, and I hope that we do just that. I hope that today, as we raise this flag, we celebrate a great accomplishment, we remember those who worked so hard to achieve it, and we continue to redouble our efforts to help support Somalia grow into the democratic and prosperous country that we all hope for, and I look forward to working with the Somali Canadian community to achieve just that. Somalia Hanulato.
Somalia Hasrat.
So I believe we're now going to have the Canadian anthem first, and then we'll move back to the flagpole and have the Somali anthem while we raise the flag.